Okay, somehow the video stopped, so I had to start it again. Anyway, I was talking about why I'm walking up and down these paths at Fredrickson Park, and how I'm looking for a good place to do quinceañera portraits. And so this is a continuation of the previous video, so check out my previous video. I don't know what it's gonna be called yet. Okay, so here is the most pointless nature trail to walk down. I'm relatively new to doing video, so excuse me if it was my fault that the video ended somehow. There's an interesting view of the new living spaces over there. If I zoomed in with my 18 to 270 millimeter lens and took a photograph, I would get a great photo right now if that were the case, because of how the triangular shapes in the walls and roof point down in a certain way towards this the wooden thing. I don't know what to call it. And even though in actuality those roofs point up, because triangles cause eye flow in photography, it still leads the viewer's eye down, because they are like a visual idea of pointing the eye all over the image. And on top of that, there are things like gutters and support beams and stuff like that that are touching those triangles that also lead the viewer's eye down. Also, I should state that the windows on that living space are what is known as Dadaist in style, because Dadaism is the art of standards, and they look extremely standard. So if someone who was a professionally trained photographer who was interested in Dadaism would be interested in that potentially. Now, I should state that the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that if you leave your windows uncurtained, then if people are on public property, they can legally look into your windows. But I should also state that looking in windows and watching in windows are different things. So that is why if someone was standing outside your house for hours or something like that, looking at only your house, then it could be a spying or voyeurism issue. But if you just briefly look, then that's a different thing. That is part of the reason as to why Arnie Sevenson from New York City won his photography court case, where he was using wide-angle zoom lenses to zoom in on people in their living spaces across the street from his living space, and submitting those photos to galleries all over the country. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not a fan of his work. And maybe I'll get into that in a different video taken in downtown South Bend, where there's a similar looking apartment complex, because the apartment complex where this happened, or I guess I should say where this happened into, was a glass building, and there's a modernish looking residential high-rise building in downtown South Bend that looks like that. So I'm not going to do what he did, obviously, but I can technically video record the outside of that building from one of the parks that I sometimes go to in downtown South Bend, which is relatively far away from it, and video record it and talk about it. Well, fortunately for me, the sun didn't come out after it stopped snowing. So, I guess the white balance issue isn't a problem. However, I actually had the white balance setting on cloudy, so I may have misspoke when I talked about white balance potentially being an issue earlier. I am using my 24mm lens to shoot this video. Now, I am going to walk down that dead-end street called Garland. Now, I've never actually eaten at this restaurant before, but because I can tell that you can see the park from the restaurant, I might decide to eat there someday just so that I can look out the windows and see the park from a different vantage point. Part of what's interesting about Garland Street is the fact that there's 3 great big trees which are signs of life, which are next to the sign that says Garland Street, and then it says dead end, and where it says dead end from this vantage point points right towards those great big large trees. So it's a little bit ironic in an interesting way, which could be told in an interesting way with photography. All right. I figured I would just do a little bit of a swoop there in case the client might decide they want their portraits taken on this street, which is highly unlikely, but you never know. Alright, so here is the view into the park from Garland Street. I actually might come back after walking to the end of the street to get this photograph because it looks relatively interesting, but I'm not sure because the clouds are moving and stuff like that, so the scene will probably change by then, but still it's worth looking at, potentially doing. The sidewalk ends here. I'm gonna walk through these leaves, I guess. Alright, so I'm at the end of that street, so I'm going to briefly walk back and look and see if that photograph is worth taking. Bye-bye.